search and graduate school applications.
Yeah, this is career coach 101 here. This is like you were in it.
It's important to know that you can use those skills, and not only use those, but a tip is that you can put that on your resume. So having that connection to yourself and to your family. Hello and welcome to Career View Mirror. I'm your host, Joyel Crawford, and today's very special guest is Susan Combs. She's actually returning to the Career View Mirror stage or arena. She was one of my first guests on Career View Mirror back in 2016. Yes, this was before I had everything on all of the podcasting platforms. I was just throwing these things on YouTube. So I am so excited to have Susan back with us. She's the youngest national president of Women in Insurance and Financial Services in over 80-year history of the organization. She's one of the coveted 40 under 40 by Advisor Today for 2015, and one of the Women of Influence by New York Business Journal for 2016. She's also a Mizzou Tiger, a half marathoner, a public speaker, expert witness, and active sports enthusiast. She's also a superhero of sorts as she battles against the labyrinth of pitfalls and particularities of insurance that dot the U.S. business landscape. In fact, she is also known on Twitter as the Insurance Vixen. She consults with companies all over the world to help them understand the importance of networking, mentorship, and gender balance. And she's guaranteed to make you laugh. And here's a piece that was not online, what needs to be, is that she is also the bestseller. I'm so excited for you. She's the best-selling author of Pancakes for Roger, a mentorship guide for slaying dragons, which is a series of quick, straightforward snapshots delivered with no fluff and a whole lot of heart. And she's offering lessons from her father, Roger, and others so that you can learn on them too as you slay your own dragons. Oh, excuse me, lean on them. Correction, lean on them as you slay your own dragons. Welcome, 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 Susan.
Thank you so much, Joyel. I appreciate it.
So a lot has happened since 2016 was the last time we talked.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I know. 2016, you and I both had fathers. You know,
I know.
A lot of life has happened in those few short years, for sure.
A lot of life and a lot of loss, but a lot of learning too has come across. What would you say has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned through the years? I know this, we only have a couple minutes, but what do you think was one of the biggest lessons that you've learned through these past years?
You know, I mean, the book came out a few months ago, and I think that I learned a lot through that process. I mean, I know you have your book as well, and you could probably echo that as well. But, you know, I think for me, probably the biggest lesson is I'm quicker to say no to things. And I think I have a lot more balance. I think that when you go through a tremendous loss, as you and I both have had in the recent history, it just gives you a different perspective on life. And it allows you to really spend time with people that you want to spend time with, do the things that you really want to do, and then just kind of cut some of the dead weight. So I think that's been probably the biggest learning lesson that I've had in the past couple of years, for sure.
That says a lot about boundaries. Sounds like we are, and I would say the biggest lesson I've learned too with loss recently has been that you can always earn a lot of money, and which is great, but you can never, you can't earn back time. Like once it's gone, it's gone. So you can never get that back. And it's been so important to say no, you know, and learning that no is a complete sentence, and really listening to my body has been a big lesson I've learned too. Both of you and I have experienced COVID. I most recently am getting over another bout of COVID.
Yeah, I did too. I just had it the second time about a month ago. Yeah.
Congratulations, me too. And COVID has been hanging on like a bad house guest in my body. It's just really challenging to get enough energy to kind of get through the day. Have you learned any like tips or techniques in kind of just showing up with these types of physical and emotional setbacks?
I mean, I was always a shower-upper. I mean, that was probably to my detriment, I would say. I think that a lot of times we had definitely roles within our families, and my father passed in 2018, and I really stepped into a lot of his roles because we just had a similar thought process. So I think when it came to that, I mean, I've really had to take care of myself, and I've almost had to kind of educate my family a little bit with remembering to ask me how I'm doing. I think a lot of times when you tend to be the fixer of the family, or you're the one that just has it all together, people just think you have kind of a cake life, and they don't realize that, hey, there's a reason that I have a cake life, because I've worked tremendously hard on what I have, and I work on my well-being as well, is very important to me. So I think kind of retraining my family a little bit, because now I've noticed just recently that my brother will text me and be like, hey, how are you doing? I know you've been on the road a lot. Are you good? Do you need anything? Are you good? So it's been, and I'm the youngest sister. So they tend to forget me.
The baby always gets forgotten, right? Nobody puts baby in the corner though,
Yeah. So, but that's been, I think that one of the things that I've retrained myself, and I've retrained my family. And then I've also I speak up for myself, and I've always been pretty plain spoken. You've known me for a very, very long time. I mean, God, going on 20 years. But it was very important, especially when I was caring for my father, when he was dying. I had to fill up my own cup first. And so I would start my day by working out, because I found that if I had to give everything away for the rest of the day, at least I started with a little bit of surplus for me. Yeah. So that was something that I really, I've always been very committed. I'm very structured. I'm very regimented. I'm very routine. And so that actually ended up helping me when I was caring for my dad, but then it also just kind of continued and just reminded me that sometimes, like you said, you have to listen to your body. You have to say no to things. And sometimes you have to stay in bed, and that's okay too. So.
Well, you haven't been staying in bed very often.
No.
You've been flying all over the country.
Yeah.
Speaking, are you speaking about your book? Are you speaking on insurance, or both? Like, what are you speaking about? What messages are you sharing with the world?
I mean, a little bit of both, but for the most part, I've been getting, I'm well known in my industry. I mean, I was the first female broker of the year. That's happened since our last conversation. So I was the first female broker of the year by Benefits Pro. And so I do have a lot of connections on that industry. So I've been getting brought in a lot on keynote speaking to talk about the book and mentorship and share some of the life lessons. And it's been a lot of fun. It really, really has. I was just in New Jersey a couple of days ago doing a keynote for the Morris County Chamber of Commerce, and there was about 200 women for their women's event, and it was absolutely just fantastic. And I'm not like being braggadocious about how I did. It was just such a well executed event. And as well as I know, when you're speaking, if there seems to be chaos going on, like, it makes the speakers feel unsettled. So to have somebody just have like everything laid out and everything being super organized, and you don't have to stress out about like, do they have my slides up? Do they not have my slides up? Is the speaker going to work? Is the microphone going to work? It's more pleasurable as a speaker to be able to do that stuff, for sure.
And I love how you said that when it's chaos, you can feel it. You pick up the energy, and it's not like, as a keynote speaker or presenter, that you need to be a diva, like you need to have like complete silence and green M&Ms and all of that stuff. I mean, maybe you do ask for that. I don't. But it is so true how much energy you can pick up. And if it's not positive energy, it just throws the whole performance off.
Absolutely.
Completely. But yes, that's fantastic that you were able to have like just a nice, calm experience to really just focus on the message. And would you be able to share like a snippet or some tips, just give us a little taste test of some lessons for us that may not be able to get to one of your keynotes?
Yeah. So, I mean, the book is divided into 4 sections: self-love, family, and career. And so what I typically do when I do keynotes is I share some of those lessons, because one of the things I've realized, and, I've traveled all over the world, just meeting people and spoke to a lot of different people. And I've mentored many people. And I understand that, I had a great family and I had a great father, but not everybody does.
Mhm.
And so, I talk to people about, like, you have the family you're born with, but then you also have your chosen family too. And sometimes your chosen family can see you a lot more complete than your blood family, because you're a fully formed adult instead of a kid with pigtails sitting in the corner coloring.
Yes.
So some of the lessons, I talk about is, or like, drive the car is a big lesson in the book. So when I grew up, in a rural community in Missouri with about 1,000 people. And so we were always driving on the farm at a very young age. But when it came to highway driving, we had to wait till we got our permit. And my father was, he had been in the military 39 years and 4 months, and he had been a helicopter pilot. And so he was very adamant about his kids being good drivers, good navigators, paying attention. And so he would just always have a cadence of drive the car, drive the car, drive the car. And he would always say, you can be the best driver in the world, but you have to worry about the other people around you. And so in the community I grew up in, I had to worry about Amish horse and buggy when I popped over the corner. I had to worry about livestock, tractors, things like that. And so you just have to anticipate. So you would literally grab the wheel and jerk it and make us go off the road. And he'd say, drive the car, drive the car. And so we had to remember to just not get crazy, to not get derailed, just stop, focus on what needs to be done, and handle the situation. So that ended up almost becoming a metaphor for my life. So anytime I have to tackle a huge task, sometimes there's 20 steps in in the process, and you can sit there and you can be a little bit paralyzed because you're just stressed out about that. But everything starts with step one. So take step one, accomplish that, then go on to step two. And I really brought that into play even when I was caring for my father. My father was on a tremendous amount of medications when he was on hospice, and we had let a lot of the medicines just be out. And one day he took his nighttime medicine in the morning because he was confused because his oxygen levels were low. So that ended up being the drive the car moment. Was we put all the medicines away. We left out only the dosage that he could have. And then we didn't have to worry about, the repercussions later. So, things like that. They're just really quick anecdotes. I mean, it's written in vignette style. So you can literally, maybe a chapter might be a paragraph or two. I think the longest chapter maybe is 10 pages. So I always tell people, if you're reading start to finish, is about 3.5 hours, but it's super easy to just pick up and put down. And, like my Uncle Joe said to my mom when my brother Matt was born, take what you want, throw out the rest. I mean, not every single, lesson's going to resonate with people, but it's kind of good to kind of file away and then pull it out when you need to.
I think that's fantastic. And I love that metaphor of driving the car. And that could be, it totally can be applied to everything, life and career. And people are experiencing setbacks and having to recalculate their route in this work world that we are living in. But I love that mantra of driving the car, that lesson, that theme that goes throughout the book. Oh, thank you for sharing that little nugget, because I know that we're not in that industry. I mean, maybe some of my listeners are in the insurance industry, and you're going to be blessed with being in front of being able to see Susan in front of you. But no, I'm so excited that you were able to share that vignette. And the book is on sale at all fine bookstores. I'm going to put the link in the comments so that you can make sure you can access that, as well as information on how you can get to learn more about Susan's firm that she's created. Oh my God, how old is Combs and Company?
2005, so 17 years. Yeah.
Oh, 17 years.
I know. I was 26 when I started it, so you can do the math. I'm 43.
Wow. That is exciting. How does it feel to have a business for 17 years?
Some days good, some days not. I mean, it's been tremendous, and I'll tell you, it's one of the best things I ever did. And I mean, and even during COVID, we just kept having great years. And this year we've already hit our revenue level for the year in the end of third quarter. So it's just, we're going to have a stellar year this year. And it's just been great. And because at the end of the day, we're doing the right thing by people.
Yeah.
And we're making sure that they can sleep well at night. So we help them manage their risk and help them feel more comfortable and understanding what insurance really is. So our tagline is, if you don't know insurance, know your broker. So a lot of times people kind of throw that back at us, but in a good way, like, I didn't understand insurance at all, but I know you and you took care of us. So it's been a good thing.
Oh, and that's a really good thing to have. I think, with, to me, I find like insurance to be a bit of a mystery. And it can be really intimidating, and to have a person who has a soft touch, or sometimes maybe you need a hard touch, but just has the personal touch of getting to know the person. You encounter a lot of people who are just in it for the sale. And I love the approach that you and your coworkers have had.
We're definitely not slimy salespeople. That's it. Cringe. We cringe when somebody's, even like a vendor, when they're trying to sell us like oh man, we delete that email so quick. So our approach is definitely consultative. We treat every single one of our clients like it was our own business and what we would do. And then we take budget and real world experience and contracts and say, okay, if we had endless money, this is what we would do. If we wanted to sleep well at night, this is what we would do. And then these are the things by law you have to do. So we just try to break it down and let people understand what they need to really have.
That's really awesome. Yeah. And it's really all about the relationship that you're building with your clients. So that's really right on. So I've got a favorite question. In the time that since we last talked, I mean, we've talked in between that.
Yes.
The audience has not been privy to that. But in the time that we last talked on Career View Mirror, I've come up with a favorite question I like to ask all my guests. And that is, if you could share one or two career or life tips with the younger you, what would they be?
I think for me, and when I mentor a lot and I talk to people that are in a sales capacity or maybe they're insurance for the first time, one of the things that I always tell people is, when you're in a sales meeting, realize that the person sitting across the table from you needs you more than you need them. And a lot of times people think that can be just like kind of a little arrogant, but it's not. You need to have a confidence about you if you're going to sell. And at the end of the day, the reason that the person sitting across from you is because you are the expert and you are more knowledgeable on the subject matter than they are. And that's why they're there. So I always tell, people that I mentor, if they can shift that confidence in their head and realize that early on, then man, their sales will go up and they'll just have so much more confidence in their presentation style too.
It's so true. I say this all the time. I say it in my book. I say it all the time when I'm speaking. But if you, it's my $1 million executive coaching advice. I said, always enter into conversations or negotiations or whatever interaction you have with other people by setting the intention of collaboration and support. And if you have that mindset, like, that person needs me, how can I help them? It's a whole different energy shift. Like, it transforms the whole type of energy dynamic that goes on in that room, because, they're digging in and they're like, oh, I'm ready for a fight. And no, it's not about a fight. Like, how can we both win at this? How can you win? And how can I win? It's the would and the coulds of us doing things together to the me. It's not all about me, it's about we. So no, I love that whole confidence booster, and making sure that you look at that other person across the table and know that they need you more than you need them. Fabulous advice. Anything else?
I mean, the book's full of advice.
You're like, read the book. Just read the book.
I mean, it's something that you mentioned earlier about having the time. So when my father was diagnosed with Agent Orange related throat cancer 10 years before he passed away, I had a friend named Joey that had given me the advice that you'll never regret the time you spent. And he said, Susan, he said, I give anything to have one more day with my dad. And I feel the same way today. And so he gave me that advice when, my company was just I think it was less than 2 years old. And I was so stressed out about showing up for my family, and helping take care of my dad when he was first diagnosed, because he had a pretty major surgery. And when he told me that, he said, Susan, he said, everybody says they want to have more time. They never say I want to have less time with that person.
Right.
So I really took that advice to heart. And I'm so glad I did, because I really feel like it made a lot of difference, because I know for the last 10 years of my father's life, I showed up on a consistent basis, and I know I was a good daughter. And I'll tell you that having, to say that I have no regrets with my relationship with my father is such a great place to be. Because I have a lot of friends that have strained relationship with their family. And if something would happen to one of them, they would just have so much regret.
Yes.
And I'm just glad that I can honestly, sit here today and say that.
Oh, it is such a blessing. It really is. And, again, I send you notes all the time because I'm thinking about you. But I am very sorry for your loss. And we could probably do a whole nother episode about working through grief while grieving. In fact, I think that's going to be the next book that I write about, is working while grieving. Because it's something that I don't think there's anything out there. There's no resources for it. We just
Well, you don't learn it in school. You learn it when you go through it. I mean, and I actually said that in my talk, in Jersey. I said, there's not a class that prepares you for loss or how to handle it. And everybody's different. And I think that's what makes it so tremendously hard. I'm wired a lot like my dad was, that if you're having a bad day, you move a muscle, change of thought, you get off your ass and you go out and do something. And, my mother and my brothers are more internalize things.
Right.
And so they can really get in a funk and get stuck. And I'm just not wired that way.
Right.
And so, which can kind of lead to some conflicts, because I just don't know how to process things, how they process them. Right. So then it's educating yourself that, okay, then who can help them? Right. So my brother Matt knows that if my mom's having a bad day, or she's really kind of gotten depressed, we just came up, my parents would have had their 50th wedding anniversary on September 30th. And, my mom was really struggling around that date. And I'm just not the right person, but my brother Matt is, and because he understands it, he can help. And so I think that with one thing with grief, you find the support where you need the support. You find the people. We've talked about the Dead Dads Club. It's a club that you never want to join, that nobody tells you about until you're a member of it. And then you get it. You truly get it. So I think it's, people talk about being sympathetic and empathetic. And I just think that significant loss is something that you really can't empathize with unless you've actually been through it.
Absolutely. 100%. And sending the sympathies is enough, or maybe not answering, sometimes the email won't get answered or the text won't get, but it's okay. I think there's acceptance in the loss, but then there's also self-acceptance that occurs as you're going and grieving through the loss. And
I think you get it more. Because you were one of the first people that reached out to me privately. And I think within 24 hours. Yeah. And you were an example to me of how I should be when other people go through a loss. So I thank you for that. And sorry, I'm a little choked up, but it's one of those things that I think that when somebody puts something on Facebook, you can see a lot of people doing the platitudes and all the comments and things like that. That really doesn't help people.
No,
it's just really the one-on-one, and it's checking on people 2 months, 3 months, 6 months after, because people just go on with their lives and they forget that part of your life is gone.
Yeah. The season doesn't run that 1 month, the 4 weeks after the loss. It's after the 4 weeks or the anniversaries. And I know this is weird and obsessive of me, but I actually document when friends of mine lose their parents, not out of morbidity, but just
to support,
because I want to just check in on them.
Yeah,
and
it's
anniversaries
beautiful.
are hard. And, it's just the thing that I like to do, because I want to attend and service other people, and kind of like what I would want from somebody as you're, grieving a loss of someone. So.
Well, and I think too, it's just like, I talk about this, and sometimes, where it's just, I feel like sometimes you feel like you have information and you don't know if you should share it. And so I think that, I had a woman that that came to my talk, and she came up to me afterwards in Jersey, and she's coming up on a year of losing her husband. And, so she was actually texting me all weekend, and I was able to kind of give her some support and just some social connection.
Yes.
But I struggled with saying second year's harder because everybody's different, but it just seems to be a consistent thing. The first year you're so numb.
Yeah. You just don't emotions.
You can't even quite figure. And for me, I threw myself into so much of the work because, my father was buried at Arlington. And so I was dealing with the Department of Defense, the VA, Arlington. My dad was also a civilian judge. So I was dealing with the judge pension and the state of Missouri and all this stuff. And we have 2 farms, and they were, oh God, 7 properties, 8 bank accounts. There was a huge long list of mine that I had to deal with. But the second year, I think it's like, oh crap, this is the new normal.
Yeah.
And so the second, I think, was harder for me. And then when you get to the third one, I think that's when you can start finding the joy.
Yeah.
And start finding the little things. I have 2 nieces, one that's 5 and one that's 2, and they're incredible. And when it comes to holidays, they're the entire focus now. And that's great because I'll tell you, man, it's hard to stay in a funk when you got little kids around.
Oh, yeah.
So I've always, thought about that. And, this year was the 4th anniversary of my father passing. And I think I had a harder time than the others. And I was trying to think, like you said, you document things. And I'm like, why was it so much harder this time? And I think it was because the first one, whatever, you're just whatever, you're shattered, right? Yes. We all are. But the second and the third fell on a weekend for me. And so I was able to isolate. And so I was able to be around people if I wanted to be around people. But this year was the first year that it was a work day. And so I went into work because I'm a shower upper. And so I went into work and everything like that. And then it just seemed like one by one, all my meetings just kind of got canceled. And so at 1 o'clock, I was like, I got to get out of here. And my kind of modus operandi is if I'm having a bad day, I buy something for somebody else. And I buy a present for somebody else. And I was like, you know what? Why the hell don't I buy myself a present? And so I went out, as you know, I'm in recovery. I've been in recovery over 20 years. And so I actually went to my second meeting, in one day, which I don't think I've done since I first got sober. Yeah. And I went and bought myself a present, and then I went and did some service. And, nothing's right nor wrong. But then I had a girlfriend that reached out to me that had been 17 years for her. And she reached out to me and she said, the anniversary of her father's passing is in December. And she said, I turned my phone off on December and I do things that my dad liked to do. She said, I play my guitar, I go for a long walk, I do different things. And I said, I think I'm going to start doing that, where I'm going to have a day that I honor him.
Yes.
And do something nice for myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have told me, and that's great if that works for you, but know that you can choose your own adventure at any time. So if you wake up the next year and you're like, nope, not going to happen. I'm staying in bed. I'm ordering, I'm ordering food and I'm going to watch trash TV all day. That's what I'm going to do. So it's just, I think that's the thing that we have to think about is give yourself permission to grieve how you need to grieve, and know that some days suck. I mean, it's just and that I believe in signs and I get a lot of them from my dad. And, this weekend I'm in Jersey with my in-laws, and Crystal Gale, Don't You Make My Brown Eyes Blue come on. And that was the song my dad used to sing to me because I swore I had blue eyes. I would literally look in the mirror at 4 years old and he'd be like, Susan, what color are your eyes? I'm like, blue. They're blue, because my mother has beautiful blue eyes. Aww. And so my dad used to sing that song for me. And so that song has come back around when I really, really needed it. So I think it was my dad's way of saying, you really crushed it at Morristown Chamber of Commerce. I think that it's really cool. And, and not everybody's into the woo-woo stuff, but if you're open to that stuff, it's just getting such a great big hug from the person that's passed. And I think it's really, really cool if you can be open to those things too.
I love it. So being open to signs and celebrating and honoring their memory, the way that works for you when it works for you,
Yeah.
and being okay with not being okay with it. I think that's great. I like to honor my dad either on his birthday or on the anniversary of his death by ordering Jamaican food,
I love
like,
it.
because he loves Jamaican food, and it just makes me remember him even more. And
maybe some year you'll go to Jamaica.
and maybe,
his
yes, I'll
birthday.
go back
Yeah.
to Jamaica and get my
Yeah.
groove back again.
Yeah.
I went in 2006. I haven't been back,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking about, taking his ashes, some of his ashes there, and bringing him home, so.
Well, and I just also have pancakes all the time. Like if I
Right.
feel it, because, part of the proceeds of the book actually go to the Veterans Clinic at the University of Missouri School of Law that provide free legal services for veterans and their families navigating the VA claims and appeals process.
Mhm.
And so the month of February, we do a big fundraiser for every pancake loving picture we get with the hashtag. And that's been, man, that just fills my soul so much. It fills my stomach, and I can't look at another stack of pancakes for a good 6 months after February. But it's just one of those things. I mean, that's kind of a nice way that if I just need a little pick me up, I can be like, yeah, let me go get some pancakes. So that's
And I'm
kinda
so glad that I'm not gluten intolerant anymore. I was gluten sensitive for like 3 years, like randomly. And
Yeah.
now I can eat gluten again. So I will be having pancakes on that
Good.
day in February. So I'll be
Thank
able to
you.
show it, because gluten-free pancakes are not, they don't do the trick. They don't do the trick.
Yeah, well, we did get, because we do it for the month of February, and we did get creative this year because I had some friends that, that are celiac, and they're like, or I had one girlfriend that says, Susan, I just hate pancakes. And I'm like, Susan's father gave her his life. Like, I can choke down pancakes. And I said, what about kimchi pancakes? She's like, oh my God. So it's like, so people were doing kimchi pancakes, they were doing waffles that we call pancakes with abs. People just got really creative this year, and it was a lot of fun. So
That's great. Oh, well, it has been an honor and a treat always to have you on the
Thank
show as my second official guest of Career View Mirror, and returning and sharing and just pouring into us. And I appreciate you so much. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much.
Grateful that we are still friends, and that we've made it through. We're making it through these next few chapters of our success stories. So thank you so much for sharing all of your goodness. And again, for everyone who's watching or listening, I will be putting all of this information and how to learn more about Susan and her business, and how to get her best-selling book. And we are going to see you soon. Again, if you like what you've heard or seen, share it, subscribe, spread the word. I've been doing this for, since 2016, 2015, I think. Let's keep this going. Let's keep this podcast going. Thank you for listening, and be well, everyone.